In baseball, the Dodgers shut out the Diamondbacks 7-0. Shohei Ohtani pitched 6 scoreless innings. The Phillies topped the Padres 3-2. Braves outscored the Blue Jays 7-3.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here he goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chambers delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
And welcome into the Deep South College Football Show here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. We talked yesterday about what Nick Saban had to say in Congress as he testified in support of the Cruz Cantwell Saving College Sports Act of 2026. We talked a lot about that bill yesterday and Nick Saban's testimony and what he had to say, because I think it was a lot of really good stuff that Coach Saban had to say there on Capitol Hill. However, there's a lot of people that are pushing back on what Nick Saban had to say and saying he's not the guy to be talking about these things here. So we'll talk about a little bit of that today here as well, because there's accusations of cheating, accusations of paying and whatnot. But look, if you think Alabama was the only place where maybe some under the table deals were happening, there's other institutions that got caught and actually punished for cheating. So if you think Alabama was the only place, we got some news for you here today on the Deep South College Football Show. And we'll continue our conversation from Tuesday, talking SEC quarterbacks, kind of going over the state of the quarterback position across the Southeastern Conference here. So should be a lot of fun today here on the Deep South College Football Show. We got the gentleman hanging out in the studio with us here today. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Well, Wyatt, currently right now it's just gentlemen, just me. But Wyatt, I'm good. This week's been great. The summertime's really starting to happen. And earlier this week I went swimming, put on sunscreen, but forgot to put it on my shoulders. So my shoulders are burnt.
Your shoulders are probably about the color of the hoodie that I'm wearing right now, I would imagine.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, that's not great there. But Reed Card's hanging out with us here in the studio. Reed, we didn't get your thoughts yesterday on what Coach Saban had to say in Washington, D.C., testifying before Congress. Just before we dive into the backlash that Coach Saban has received, kind of what were your thoughts on what Nick Saban had to say in Congress yesterday?
Yeah, well, I think, I don't think anyone's ever going to have it perfect, but I think I'm more of a do by action than do by say. I know the SEC and the Big Ten came out and said, hey, we don't agree with this and there's many flaws, but there was nothing that was proposed of them, right? While Nick Saban said, okay, I think that this is what can, and it'll give it some type of structure that we can then maybe adjust moving forward to help hopefully fix college sports.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that, Coach Saban talked about in this bill. So for those that don't know, or those that didn't listen to the show yesterday, the bill, essentially what it does is it restricts some of the player movement, but it also opens the door for these players to make the money that they deserve, right? Some of the things that were coming out in this Cruz Cantwell Saving College Sports Act of 2026. Number one, coaches, it's the Lane Kiffin rule is what it's being called, but coaches are not allowed to leave before the end of the season. So the Lane Kiffin situation where, he takes the job at LSU, Ole Miss decides, you know what, we're not going to let you finish out the year. We're going to go ahead and send you down to Baton Rouge since you want to go coach there so bad. You're going to go down there, and you're not going to get to finish the college football playoff run with your team this season. That will not be the case. You'll see more situations of a John Sumrall or a Bob Chesney, right? Sumrall, the head coach at Tulane last season, led the Green Wave to the college football playoff and coached in that playoff game, ironically against Ole Miss. But when Ole Miss defeated Tulane, then John Sumrall officially left the Green Wave and became the head coach of the Florida Gators. Same thing with Bob Chesney at James Madison last season. He was the head coach at JMU, took the Dukes to the college football playoff against the Oregon Ducks, and then pretty much immediately after James Madison lost to Oregon, he then transitions to becoming the full-time head coach at UCLA. And there's coaching changes every single year, right? Most coaches do tend to stay and finish out the year with their current program. Hell, we saw Jamarcus Shepard do it with Alabama last season, right? During, I think, it came out the week prior to the SEC championship, or maybe the week of the Iron Bowl, Thanksgiving week there, that he was going to be the new head coach at Oregon State. Well, he double dipped in his duties. He would be the head coach at Oregon State, but he also continued to coach wide receivers in Tuscaloosa until the end of Alabama's season. Same with Nick Sheridan, took the OC job at Michigan State, finished out the year with the Crimson Tide, and then transitioned to East Lansing, Michigan up there with their new head coach as well. So, Reed, it seems like just the media, it was just the media storm that came out of the Lane Kiffin situation a season ago is the reason for this rule, because I would say probably 95% of the time, these coaches, they are sticking it out with their current institution. Now, they're double dipping. We heard John Summerall say at SEC spring meetings last week in Destin, Florida, hey, I was working 2 jobs. For 3 weeks, I was working 2 jobs, 2 head coaching jobs. It sucked. It was miserable. But he was still the head coach at Tulane. So it seems like, Reed, for the most part, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, these coaches are finishing out with their current institutions before leaving for the new program. It was just the publicity and the media around Lane Kiffin is kind of what led to this rule coming in.
Yeah, Wyatt, and I've always been a big believer, not really just on the aspects of head coaches, but really in life. If you commit to something, you got to fulfill it all the way to the end. And that's at least that's why I was like you said with Jamarcus Shepard and John Summerall. Even if they are double dipping, and some people might not like that, right? Because then you're like, oh, well, you got to kind of pick a side. Once they finish out the season and then they move on, I think that's the right way to go about things.
I agree. And then some other things that came out of this Cruz Cantwell bill here that Coach Saban talked about yesterday, it limits what agents can kind of take from the players. It limits their cap at 5% of the players' earnings, and it also forces them to register with the state. Reed, I don't know if you knew this, or if the listeners or watchers knew this, but some of these agents are taking like 20% from these kids. So I mean, if there's a kid out there making $2 million in NIL, well, that agent's getting 20% of that. They're getting a significant portion of that player's money, and it may not necessarily always be agents that are doing it, right? Sometimes it's somebody who claims to be an agent, but really and truly it's a dad or an uncle or something like that ends up taking a good percentage of the cut that the player ends up getting there. So looking at it here, I love the idea that you're limiting what these agents can do. You're limiting how they can take advantage of student athletes. And by the way, Reed, they also talked about in the bill that you can't lie to players, right? You can't say, oh, we'll give you this much NIL money and then not give them that much NIL money. If you're giving Monson Sales $1 million and then he gets to campus and he's only collecting $800,000, that's, improper NIL practices. And that seems to be the case with a lot of schools. It seems to be they're over-promising and under-delivering on some of these NIL contracts.
Yeah, and we were talking about it kind of on the last show is you got to think of how many times has that actually happened, and now that it's finally kind of being addressed, how does that kind of, I guess, in a sense, affect recruiting? Like, were there certain schools, in a sense, that were promising so much to all these recruits, whether, like you said, whether it was just, 50,000, 100,000 less, maybe that's that turning point to where, a fewer guys start committing to that school because they're like, hey, you didn't fulfill me on what you promised me.
And it could lead to, Reed, I think you could see this lead into some holdouts in terms of games, seasons, and whatnot. Now, you can always just say there's ways that schools can kind of work around saying a player is holding out because of NIL, right? You just say, he's got a lower back strain. We don't know how long he's going to be out, right? Because you can't really prove that, right? Or, hey, pulled hamstring, he's going to miss some time here. So you can kind of work around it a little bit, but I am interested to see if you're going to start seeing a little bit more transparency from players and or agents and or media people that are in the know. If they say, hey, University XYZ says, hey, this player's got an injury. No, it's because this school's not paying my player. It's because this school's not paying me, not paying my player, not paying my son, whatever. And therefore, that's why we're going to hold out. I wonder if you're going to start to see a little bit more holdouts NIL related at this point. And we've seen a couple of them before, right? Like Nico held out of spring practice a couple of seasons ago at Tennessee, and that led to him leaving Tennessee at that point.
Yeah, and I think that'll address, like you pointed out, the whole Nico situation and really others that you don't want to bring unnecessary attention to your program because of a guy sitting out. And then, like you said, though, whether it's some type of soreness or, oh, man, my leg, it's in the sense of if you cannot fulfill what they're promising you and you bring that unnecessary attention, it's going to be like we mentioned, the whole Tennessee thing, how much tension that brought it, and then what Nico ended up doing leaving Tennessee.
It's unnecessary media attention. It's an unnecessary distraction around the team at that point when you do start to talk about, hey, this guy's holding out because the school's not paying the NIL. Well, it's an unnecessary distraction for the current roster. Yes, if a player is holding out, then they're probably a meaningful contributor if they feel like their holdout the lack of their presence by holding out would affect the team in such a way that they may be able to get the money that they were, quote unquote, promised or told they were going to be getting there. I am interested to see how that plays out, though, because, again, unnecessary distraction for the current roster. It's unnecessary negative attention around the university. It's unnecessary attention around the player as well, because the media is going to be talking about the player and the team as well. But I wonder what that does to recruiting down the line, especially even if you give the player the money, right? So let's say, a player is holding out for an extra $200,000 because they were promised $1 million and they're only getting $800,000, right? So they hold out for, we'll say, a month of spring practice, right? They hold out for a month in spring ball, but then suddenly, hey, my back spasm's fine. My hamstring's good. I'm not injured anymore. So they come back because of the NIL holdout. But what does that do for recruiting down the line is a question that I've got at that point, because now these other kids, they see, yes, you ended up getting your money, but you had to hold out. You had to stunt your development. You had to fight tooth and nail to get your money. So even though they did come through on the money side of things, are they going to try and, swindle me out of some cash here? Are they going to try and, dock my pay? Am I going to have to go through this same situation at this point? So I am interested to see if it does come out that there's going to be like a NIL holdout. Let's say, there's a kid that holds out because of NIL. Even if the school pays the money at the end of that situation, does it negatively affect them in recruiting down the line?
It does, Wyatt, and that's what I was going to reference is if I'm a recruit, right, and I'm looking at your school and I'm hearing all this buzz about, hey, you're not playing players a certain amount, why would I want to have that hassle in kind of a standoff between myself and the school over something that you already promised? I'll just take, my talents elsewhere.
Yep, that's exactly what some players will do. And look, if you're a good enough player, I don't want to name players and I don't want to name schools because then it's going to come off like, that's what happened. But I promise you that is not the case. I'm not naming anything that has happened here. But let's say, Cam Coleman, let's say he holds out of Texas all of a sudden. Is that going to negatively affect Texas's wide receiver recruiting or Texas's recruiting in general down the line? Or let's say Ja'Cory Moore holds out at Oregon. Is that going to negatively affect Oregon down the line? Because some of these schools, they're over-promising and under-delivering. We've heard rumblings and rumors of, hey, was there a holdout at Georgia in the Sugar Bowl 2 seasons ago? Was there, a holdout at Alabama in the Rose Bowl, 3 seasons ago with a player like Isaiah Bond, who allegedly did ask for more NIL money multiple times during that season for Alabama? So it'll be interesting to see, but right now it feels like an arms race, and that's exactly the words Nick Saban used yesterday. It is an arms race, right? Whoever's got the most money, whoever's got the biggest booster, the most billionaires, hey, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to come out here and buy the biggest roster, buy the most players essentially, or pay for the most players to come to their school. It's an arms race, and Nick Saban pushed back on that yesterday. And then a lot of people had a lot of things to say about Nick Saban. So we'll talk about that here on the other side, here on the Deep South College Football Show. If you're checking us out on YouTube, X, or Facebook, we greatly appreciate it. Leave a like, leave a comment. We'll address those comments here on the air on the Deep South College Football Show here on Tide 100.
9,000. That's 900,000 for a free consultation. No fees unless we win. No representation is made that the quality of legal services performed is greater than that of other lawyers.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the game, we're going to talk to Brad Powers. We'll talk a lot of handicapping odds for the upcoming college football season. Rodney Orr will project recruiting. Again, another big weekend on the campus of the University of Alabama. We'll talk to Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Plus your phone calls and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. on the game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9 and WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. And streaming worldwide on the free Tide app.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more info on marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa, call 205-345-7200 or click on Advertise with Us on our website.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. A beautiful afternoon with sunshine at 83, an easterly breeze, 60 our low tonight. By tomorrow, 83. Thursday night's low 60, and Friday sunshine with a high 86. Looks like our next shot at showers and storms coming in late in the day on Saturday with a high 86. Numerous showers and storms to close out the weekend on Sunday. Sunday's high in the mid-80s. Richard DeWething at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media Tuscaloosa.
It's 84 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
From Tuscaloosa to the world, download the free Tide 100.9 app for all the latest on Crimson Tide sports.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. We talked about what Nick Saban had to say yesterday in Congress during his testimony in support of the Cruz Cantwell Saving College Sports Act of 2026. And a lot of people online had a lot of things to say about what Nick Saban had to say yesterday here. Looking at it here, by the way, Christian Miller just going after people yesterday on Twitter here. But you look at some of the things that people were saying here. Coach Steve here, who, if you look at Coach Steve, he's the co-host of Keenan Quarter Radio there, said every single person that covered the sport around this time said Bama was cheating. Okay. Jackson, surely Alabama was not the only school.
Yeah, can we define cheating? Because cheating implies doing something that's breaking the rules to win you games during the game. Now, I'm sorry, did we have Connor Stallions on our sideline?
Alabama did not.
Okay.
No, they did not.
Okay.
So the idea is that, Alabama's handing a couple tens of thousands to a kid,
bag,
buying them a car, things like that there. That's the insinuation that people have been making about the University of Alabama under Nick Saban's tenure here. Well, we just so happen to have a former Alabama player on our networks here. Christian Miller, host of the Miller's Edge from 11 to 1 every single weekday here on Tide 100.9. Jackson, do you know what Christian Miller was rated coming out of high school?
Yeah, I believe he was a pretty highly touted defensive player coming out of high school.
That would be the number 1 player in the state of South Carolina, the number 14 overall player in the class. And Jackson, we know based off recruiting rankings, everybody in the top 32 is considered a 5-star. So
right.
Let's do some quick math here. Is 14 inside of 32?
I believe so.
So Christian Miller was a 5-star linebacker coming out of high school who chose the University of Alabama. And that's what he said. Every single person that covered the sport, they covered it. Christian lived it and never received a dime from the University of Alabama as a player because Christian played in the pre-NIL era. So, look, if we're not giving money to the 14th best player in the class, who's getting the money? If we're not giving money to 5-star linebackers at the University of Alabama, who's getting that money? Because if I remember correctly, linebacker and defense was what Nick Saban and Alabama specialized in at the time of Christian Miller's recruitment, which was 2012 to 2013. That 2011-2012 defenses were widely regarded as some of the best ever in the sport.
Right.
So it seems like Alabama probably should have been paying 5-star linebackers on defense.
Correct. And I think we can do a quick comparison here. You can look at the parking lot of Alabama athletics right now. And then you can remember back to the parking lots during Saban's tenure. And I think it's safe to say they're completely different.
They're very, very different. Now, there were some players that, still were driving nicer vehicles, right? Greg McElroy, for example, during his Alabama tenure, he was driving a G-Wagon. So everybody's saying, hey, maybe did you pay Greg McElroy? Did you pay him to come to campus? Greg McElroy on multiple shows has said, I never received a dime from the University of Alabama. But Jackson, wasn't his dad like the VP of the Dallas Cowboys at that point?
Yes.
So I have a feeling Greg McElroy probably, could afford a G-Wagon, could afford a Mercedes at that point there in his life, and I'm sure he can now. Okay, so a national champion winning quarterback, a 5-star linebacker, neither of those got paid by Alabama.
I think Mark Ingram has also said the same thing, if I'm not
So that's now a first-round Heisman Trophy winning running back that was the bell cow of a national championship team in 2009, the bell cow of the 2008 team as well. Jackson, we're starting to run out of, we keep going up, right? 5-star linebacker, national champion winning quarterback, national champion Heisman winning running back, and all three of them have said, I never got paid. We're running out of guys here we're running out of steps up that we can say, hey, yeah, that guy probably got paid.
Right. How many more receipts do we need? And for all those people in the comments saying, oh, Saban just doesn't like it because now everybody's paying everybody, it's made Alabama weaker. Now Alabama can't pay people like other people can. I'm sorry. You're false. That's false. We're not Auburn. We're not dropping paper sacks on Highway 280 at a random gas station so Cam Newton can come pick it up and go to Auburn.
You got that situation. I mean, and look, even Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer took a shot at Nick Saban here as well. Here, this audio is courtesy of Crane & Co. I don't believe this is where it originated from, but Urban Meyer had some things to say about Nick Saban. So let's hear what the former Florida and Ohio State coach had to say. This audio is courtesy of Crane & Co.
Clip. Coach of Florida, we played around in Louisiana, and we get to the dance floor with a great player, and then he wouldn't come. So I said, enough. I'm not flying into Louisiana again. I'm good. Now, I know Nick Saban went in there and got some players, but that was a whole different level game that I was not willing to go do.
Okay,
Jackson, what do we think he meant by that? Does it seem like he's insinuating, hey, maybe Bama was paying kids out of Louisiana?
I think that's what he wanted it to sound like, but I think what it really sounds like from my perspective is that Urban Meyer wasn't willing to put in the work and the recruiting trail to get quality players anymore in the SEC.
Another thing is...
hence why he had a medical condition, retired, and then went to Ohio State, and then retired for another medical condition, and then went to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey, Urban Meyer... I've got all the respect in the world for you as a football coach. Do we really want to get into the legality of what was going on in Gainesville in the late 2000s?
Not just the legality, but the morality behind,
Do we want to get into
twins or Aaron Hernandez?
Do we want to get into the Pounceys? Do we want to get into Percy Harvin? Do we want to get into Cam Newton? What about a tight end by the name of Aaron Hernandez? Do we really want to go down that road, Urban Meyer? Because didn't seem like you had maybe as tight of a hold on that Florida program as initially thought there. And again, I got all the respect in the world for him as a coach. The fact that, we know what happened with the Gators, and the fact that he kept that team on the field, capable of winning a national championship, winning multiple national championships, that's impressive as hell.
Hot take.
I have no doubt he's a good coach.
Hot take. I think that was more due to Tim Tebow than Urban Meyer.
And Tim Tebow was a phenomenal quarterback there, but even still, right? I mean, the fact that roster was kept together and kept on the field long enough to go win a national championship, the fact that they were able to stay together for the course of an entire season, that's impressive in and of itself. But again, do we really want to get into the legality of what was going on in Gainesville, Florida in the late 2000s? What about Ohio State? What about, you were squeaky clean at Ohio State, right? Ohio State's never had a scandal. What, didn't they have a starting quarterback, trade tattoos for things? Got suspended, sanctions put on the program. I mean, if you think, look, and I'm going to echo Christian's sentiment here. I have no doubt that there probably were some, under the table things happening, right? I mean, it was all over college sports, right? Ole Miss got in trouble for it. Ole Miss got sanctioned for it, by the way, after Hugh Freeze left that program. Cam Newton got popped for it. Tennessee got McDonald's back. I mean, they sanctioned that program to high hell, did everything but give them the death penalty. Ohio State had it happen with the tattoo scandal. Reggie Bush got his Heisman Trophy taken away because of things like this. So Todd Gurley, like you mentioned. So if you think Alabama's the only place that maybe some under the table deals were happening, I have no doubt that they probably were at Alabama, but let's not throw stones from glass houses. All right. If you're going to live in a glass house, let's not throw rocks here. And by the way, it seems like Miami has been very, very vocal about this. Again, let's not throw stones from glass houses here, Miami.
Crime you.
Yeah. Catholics versus convicts. You remember that, Jackson?
I do. Which university was the convicts?
I don't believe Miami is a Catholic institution. Could be wrong. But, when it's Miami versus Notre Dame, I'd be willing to put a lot of money on Notre Dame being the Catholic institution there. So that would mean Notre Dame is the Catholics. Okay, so Miami's the convicts here. Okay. Yeah. Let's not throw stones from glass houses, guys. Everybody was doing it back in the day. Bill Belichick said it too, though. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And Alabama, if they were, they got away with it better than anybody else did.
Wise words from Deflategate man himself and the
Deflategate, Spygate, yeah. Multiple other scandals. Wonder how Jordan Hudson's doing right now with Bill Belichick.
Well, as long as she's not Robert Kraft's masseuse.
All right, we're going to go to break before we start to, really dive into the deep end here. Long story short, don't throw stones from glass houses. Make sure your program's squeaky clean before you come talk about the University of Alabama here. All right, we'll dive back into the SEC quarterbacks conversation here on the other side of this break as we want to wrap up what we've got to say and think and our thoughts about the quarterback situation in the Southeastern Conference here on the Deep South College.
Today on the pod, we're talking to Joan, a method actor and scratchers enthusiast. So, Joan, what do you like about playing scratchers?
Well, as a method actor, it's about becoming the ticket. Scratching up, down, stage left, stage right.
So what's your motivation? Because your performance feels so real.
Oh, I was just tapping into my inner scratchers.
Incredible.
Yes. Bravo me.
Scratchers from the California Lottery. A little play can make your day. Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase player claim.
Powered by Tuscaloosa Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. Find adventure, power, and performance today at Tuscaloosa Jeep Dodge Ram.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of The Game, we're going to talk to Brad Powers. We'll talk a lot of handicapping odds for the upcoming college football season. Rodney Orr will project recruiting. Again, another big weekend on the campus of the University of Alabama. We'll talk to Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Plus your phone calls and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. on The Game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9 and WTBC. Your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. And streaming worldwide on the free Tide app.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more, ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
24/7, 365. We've got all your coverage of the Crimson Tide on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC, the Deep South College Football Show YouTube page, my personal X account at FultonW_, and on the Tide Facebook page. We appreciate everybody who's watching, listening to us here on the Deep South College Football Show on a beautiful but a little toasty Thursday afternoon here in Tuscaloosa. We're talking quarterbacks here in the SEC now on the program as we began this exercise on Tuesday, took a brief pause on Wednesday to talk a little bit about what Coach Saban had to say up in Congress, and now we'll dive back into the quarterback conversation here. We ended with Georgia and Gunnar Stockton and talked about what he brings to the table for the Bulldogs here. Next up is Kentucky and Notre Dame transfer Kenny Minchey, who was originally committed to Nebraska, but flipped his commitment to Kentucky here. Will Stein, the new head coach at Kentucky, has done a really, really good job of bringing in talented names, right? And what I mean by that is if you follow college football, if you cover college football at a pretty high clip, you're familiar with some of the names on Kentucky's roster, right? You're familiar with Kenny Minchey because he was battling with C.J. Carr last offseason there for the quarterback spot. Also battled with Riley Leonard there a couple of seasons ago as well for Notre Dame, but lost both those battles. C.J. Baxter transferred in at running back for Kentucky. If you follow college football, he was probably projected to be the starter for Texas last season before an injury there. You've also got Nick Anderson, a big-bodied wide receiver that started his career at Oklahoma, ended up at LSU last season, didn't quite have the season he wanted with the Tigers, and transferred to Kentucky here. So, Jackson, they've done a pretty good job of bringing in names and talents, but it's a lot of unproven talent based on, injuries or the fact that they maybe lost competitions here.
Correct. And, from what everybody has said about Kenny Minchey from that Notre Dame athletic department has been pretty high. And there was a reason why they really wanted to keep him around. But like you said, it's the, it's the unknowns. Especially for me, it's on that Kentucky defense. Like, you used to be able to check mark in that Kentucky would have probably middle of the road to top half of the SEC in defensive production and defensive quality. Now with Will Stein, is that going to flip and it'll be that way on offense, and then you're just going to have, instead of it being, a possession type game when you're playing Kentucky, is it going to be, a shootout where you've got to score 30 points just to beat Kentucky now? Could happen. And I think that's, probably the type of team that Will Stein's going to lean on his first couple of seasons as he develops that talent and brings them in. But I do think Kenny Minchey will be a quality starter for Kentucky.
What's a little nerve-wracking from the Alabama standpoint, right? Because we cover Alabama here on Tide 100.9 is you go to Lexington, Kentucky in week number 2. Kentucky's got a relatively easy game to start the year. Alabama's got East Carolina, so you're not expecting anything wild to happen that first week of the season. So 1-0 Bama versus 1-0 Kentucky. Think we can safely pencil that in here. But Kentucky's probably not going to, show too much in week number 1 against that opening season opponent, right? And so you're going into a new environment for many players on this Alabama roster. Unless they were with the Tide in 2023, none of the players have been to Lexington, Kentucky. And you start to go down the roster, nobody on offense was with Alabama in 2023. Defensively, you had Bray Hubbard, but he wasn't a key contributor on defense yet. No Xavier Brown, no Dejon Lee, no Keon Sabb. No Red Morgan, nobody in that linebacker room. Actually, now that I think about it, Bray Hubbard might be the only one that was with Alabama. Maybe Yanze Pierre as well, but he was redshirting in 2023. So Bray Hubbard, special teamer. Yanze Pierre, no meaningful reps in a redshirt season for Alabama. So new environment. It's a weird place to play. It's a very weird place to go play a football game. And then you also look at the fact that it's an unknown, right? You can't go look at Kentucky tape from last season or the last couple of seasons because it's a brand new head coach. It's a brand new offensive scheme. You're not really going to be able to rely on the Oregon tape on offense because they've got so many different players, different athletes on the field for Kentucky as you did at Oregon. So it is going to be really interesting. If you're Alabama, Jackson, you can't overlook Kentucky in week 2. Yes, they're probably going to finish in the bottom half of the SEC. Yes, Kentucky does not have that high standard and pedigree to really take your attention. And you've got that Florida State game in week 3, that revenge game from last season that you want to, pay attention to as well. But you can't overlook Kentucky in week number 2 there.
No. And I mean, I would liken it to a similar situation as the week 1 game against Florida State last year, where you had no idea what Florida State was going to look like offensively at all.
Right.
New quarterback, new offensive coordinator, completely new scheme, new offensive line, new wide receivers, and that's exactly the same situation you're walking into week 2 at Kentucky. So you, like you said, you can't overlook that, and not to mention, especially since you got Florida State coming back to Bryant-Denny the following week. And so, which will be another similar situation where it's a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback.
Yep.
So those 2 games are going to be highly important for Alabama.
Yeah, I think, when we go down and we look at the Alabama schedule here, we look at East Carolina win, Kentucky win, Florida State win, South Carolina win, Mississippi State win. I think myself and everybody really expects Alabama to be undefeated going into that matchup with Georgia on October the 10th there. But it doesn't mean that necessarily these are going to be easy games leading up to that Georgia game, right? Like we mentioned, Kentucky, weird place to play. Very few players on this roster have been to Kentucky before. New head coach, new scheme, the whole 9 yards there. Florida State, new quarterback. Now it is not Deuce Knight. It's Ashton Daniels. So you've got some familiarity because you did play Ashton Daniels in the Iron Bowl last season, but new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, a coach in Mike Norvell that's fighting for his life, basically. He's been fighting for his life for the last, 3 seasons, it seems like, with Mike Norvell in Florida State. So maybe they kind of, open the book a little bit more, open that playbook just a little bit more to try and take down Alabama. Mississippi State, nobody on this roster besides Bray Hubbard and Yanze Pierre have been to Starkville. And we know those cowbells make it utterly miserable to try and make any sort of adjustments or play or changes at the line of scrimmage. So even though on paper, yes, Alabama should probably, handle their business going into that Georgia matchup on October the 10th, you've got some really tough games in there going on the road to Kentucky, playing Florida State with new coordinators, and going to Mississippi State. You've got some really tough games.
Yeah, and is Squirrel White still at Florida State?
He is not. He got drafted into the NFL or signed as a UDFA and retired. So Squirrel White out of football entirely now. But Deuce Robinson is back, and he was their leading receiver last year.
Okay.
So they also I think Malachi Danzy or Makai Danzy, he's back. He created a lot of big headaches for Alabama in week 1, taking stuff. Came in as a running back, shifted to wide receiver, but they do a really good job of using him kind of in the motion type of offense, spread motion type stuff, where you're putting him in motion, getting him the ball out of the backfield and things like that. So you're really going to have to be disciplined with your eyes when you take on Kentucky and Florida State, because we know what Will Stein was able to do as the offensive coordinator for Oregon. Speaking of Mississippi State, that leads us into Kamario Taylor, who was the backup for Mississippi State last season, came in when Blake Shapen went down with an injury and finished the year with 629 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. He also contributed 458 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. I would say his best rushing performance came against Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl, where he had 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. From a passing standpoint, though, Jackson, it looks like his best day came against Wake Forest there in the Mayo Bowl with 241 yards and 1 touchdown through the air. Also had a touchdown on the ground there against Wake Forest. I really like what Kamario Taylor brings to the table. He's a very talented player. He's a very talented athlete, 6'4", 230 pounds, Macon, Mississippi native. Maybe kind of that diamond in the rough that Mississippi State kind of has to find in order to have success right now in the modern landscape of the sport. he's another guy that, very difficult to bring down, very hard to tackle. You're probably not going to get him down with just one defender. And so he's going to require a lot of your attention, which does open things up for some of these receivers from Mississippi State, as well as Fluff Bothwell. That's not a speech impediment. That is his name, Fluff Bothwell, Bothwell, who's one of the better running backs returning in the SEC this season here. So I like what Kamario Taylor brings. I think Mississippi State's got some good pieces on the offensive side of the ball. But again, if you're Alabama, from the Alabama lens, this is going to be a tough game going into Starkville there in the week before you play Georgia there. So I guess that would be October the 3rd. I think they're going to Mississippi State. I guess if Georgia's on October 10th, that would make Mississippi State a week earlier, October the 3rd there. You can't overlook this game either. Road environment. It's a renewed rivalry. It's the battle for Highway 82 here in between the two closest teams in the SEC. Less than an hour? I think with traffic, I think it ends up being like an hour and a half drive. But if you're just open road, Tuscaloosa to Starkville, it's like 50 minutes or something like that, around an hour between Tuscaloosa and Starkville there with Alabama and Mississippi State. So renewed rivalry, going to be a rough environment with the cowbells. They make it so difficult to hear and make adjustments on both sides of the football there because those cowbells just never stop, whether you're on offense or defense here, Jackson.
I agree. Kamario Taylor, from what I remember from, I didn't tune in very often to a Mississippi State game last year unless it was the Egg Bowl or when they played Georgia. But I would say in both those games, he looked pretty well. He showed off a lot of good stuff, especially against Georgia, where that defense was basically suffocating that entire Mississippi State offense while Shapen was in there. And then Taylor comes in there, and it's like, now part of that is probably due to, you didn't prepare to play the backup quarterback, but also some of the skill plays that he was making with his feet, his diving into the end zone after shaking two linebackers. I was like, oh, this kid, and even the announcers were like, this guy has a very bright future, and if he stays at Mississippi State and doesn't get poached, he'll likely be the starter next year.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and jump out of the phone lines here. We'll head on down to Louisiana and let's talk with Digger. Digger, how you doing?
Interesting you brought up Kentucky and Mississippi. Y'all better dominate and win by 3 scores or you're going to hear it from me. Y'all belly aching about how we barely got out of there, okay? And we had a difficult time with both of those teams. I get it, okay? Now the shoe's on the other foot. I want to see Alabama dominate or else you're going to hear from me. Okay? In the story.
I mean, fair enough. On paper, Alabama should dominate those games. Absolutely. But games aren't played on paper. Games aren't played on paper. They're played on grass. Or at the end of the season, they're played on turf.
Do not underestimate his head coach at Kentucky. Okay? I'm not saying...
Jackson, wasn't I just giving him props?
He's going to be a lot better than Stoops, put it that way. So, real quick, can I say something about Saban in this thing in D.C.?
Why not?
The message was fine. The messenger's the problem. Okay, you should have had Mac Brown up there.
Mac Brown?
Yeah. He's seen it on both ends of the spectrum. So you're saying
the greatest college football head coach of all time should not be talking about the issues going on in college football?
Well, no, because, look, do you honestly think you're going to get a fair shake from him? They're not going to have 1 ounce of iota sympathy for him because he made a fortune. Nobody remembers when Mal Moore paid $4 million to get him out of Miami. And back then, that was a lot of money. So you're throwing money around on a program, and that's where the hypocrisy sinks in. Okay? You remember the water fountain you had in that athletic department?
The hypocrisy is that everybody's saying he doesn't care about other sports. Alabama, sucked in all these other sports when Saban was there, when men's and women's golf won national championships, gymnastics won a national championship, softball won a national championship, basketball went out and won multiple SEC championships. So it's everybody saying, hey, he couldn't give a rat's behind about other sports. No, Alabama still cared about other sports. Alabama still won at a very high clip in other sports. That's the hypocrisy that I've got issues with. Look, you can say messenger, whatever. Nick Saban may not be the right guy just because of what he did to college football, and everyone's got, a vendetta against Nick Saban because he embarrassed teams for 17 years. That's fine, but don't come out and blatantly lie. Alabama saw major success in several of these Olympic sports that we're all trying to save right now, even while Nick Saban was there.
Well, I don't know. I mean, again, is your sport suffering now since the NIL?
Is football? Sure.
No, I'm talking about the other sport. Since NIL, is it suffering?
I mean, we're in a super regional in baseball. We made it to Oklahoma City in softball.
Okay.
Basketball made the Sweet 16 and made a Final Four in the NIL era.
So what is the problem here? What is the problem? I don't understand what's the problem with all that is.
The problem is the people saying that, Nick Saban only cares now because Alabama's not doing so well now that everybody else can pay players.
Well,
we know we have it on first-hand experience here from former Alabama players themselves saying we never got a dime.
Well, no, come on, don't start that crap with me, man. Really? What about Stallings in DB from what's his name?
They got punished for that.
He got punished for it, but did it happen? He got improper benefits from his agent. Antonio Lang.
And they got punished for that.
Whatever. He got punished for it, but it happened. You weren't supposed to do it. You weren't regulating yourself. You weren't controlling it. And Stallings just act like nothing happened. He just looked the other way.
Alabama's not the only school that was doing. Alabama's not the only school that was doing this.
And there goes the problem. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Just make it open market, because I guarantee you, if you put caps in, salary caps, and you put all these guardrails, guess what? We're going to be going straight back to what y'all were doing before in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Okay?
Every other major sport has got a salary. Every other major sport has got some stipulation on the cap. The MLB just implemented a cap floor. The NBA, the NFL, they've got salary caps. But just because we're college football, Digger, don't act dumb. These kids are pros at this point. These kids are pros at this point.
Look, wait a minute. Hold on. Time out. How good is that Miami baseball team then, since there's a cap? How good is the Houston Astros since it's a cap? How good are these teams that are rock bottom, dead, rotten, bad, and there's a cap? It doesn't level the playing field. It's who you choose to pay. Okay? So I'm just saying, is it really equitably? I mean, look at the Yankees. Come on. L.A. Dodgers. Okay? Seattle's putting out money, and they're at the top of the list. So I'm just saying, you've got your big spenders, and you've got people who don't want to spend. Okay?
I wouldn't say that they don't want to spend. I would say it's that they can't spend.
Right.
They fiscally cannot spend like these other teams. The Marlins cannot fiscally spend like the Yankees can spend. Correct?
Right.
You're telling me a billionaire can't spend? Just about every owner in the NBA or in the MLB are billionaires. It's whether they choose to spend or not.
Texas Tech and Cody Campbell, they can spend $40 million a year. Oregon and Phil Knight can go spend $40 million a year. Can Georgia?
Yeah.
Can Arkansas? Well, Arkansas is a bad example because they got Tyson and Walmart. But that was a bad example. Excuse me. Can Oklahoma?
Yeah, I get it.
Can Mississippi State?
I get it. These are good points, but I don't know if salary cap's going to solve the problem. Because it'll just go back.
You've got to have an enforceable salary cap. That's the thing. We can talk about, hey, we're capping it at $40 million. And then, like you said, we'll just go right back to, all right, here's another $50,000 under the table. Don't tell anybody.
The question
you've got to find a way to punish them, and you've got to give somebody the power to dish out punishments.
Right. And the question is it an overall NIL cap for your entire athletic department, or is it an NIL cap for football? You have one for baseball.
It's sport to sport. Why can't you go sport to sport?
It's different. It's different sport to sport, right? If you're spending, $40 million in college football, congratulations. You should be able to make the semis, but you might not. If you're spending, $30 million in college basketball, you better have your ass in the Final Four.
Yeah. Well, Saban did say it's going to be football and basketball, and the rest will be club sports. I don't think so. Texas just won the national championship in rowing. And guess what? This is an 8-woman shell, that's the boat, put in a world record time. And guess what?
Hey, by the way, big win last night for Texas softball, by the way.
Yeah. We're hanging on by a thread.
That was a good one.
Today.
Do you know the viewership numbers for Texas rowing or collegiate rowing in general?
No, but I do know this much. I knew you were going to get to that point. I do know this much. Since they put in a world record time, okay, each one of those ladies, 8 row, the 8 people, they get $500,000 through sponsors, stipends, and grants. Okay, the money's there. It's willing if you're willing to choose, and if there's people out there who will pay for it. Because I'm telling you, the money is there.
Texas,
so it's universities not wanting to take a little bit less on their profit.
Oh, I don't know. All I know is that who thinks you're going to make money in rowing? And you've got 8 women that just got $500,000 for setting in a world record time.
Okay. Is Mississippi State's rowing team going to be able to dish out that kind of money to their rowing team? That's what this comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, Alabama's got a rowing team. Are y'all putting that kind of money into it or not? So, yeah, I get it. All right, we're going round and around, and I got to get back in the office. See you later.
All right, that's our friend down in Louisiana. Got to get back into the office here.
How much do you think they gave Vince Young?
At least a car, maybe some under the table bags of cash full of bags of McDonald's cash.
And Colt McCoy.
Oh, Colt McCoy. Yeah, I definitely feel like Colt McCoy made something there. All right, that'll do it for us today here on the Deep South College Football Show. We blew through that last break there, so we'll go ahead and get out of here a little bit early and make way for the game with Ryan Fowler on the radio side of things here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
This hour's West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
A worker at a lumber mill in North Tuscaloosa County died in an accident involving machinery last night, investigators have confirmed. About 20 miles to the west, a Tuscaloosa teenager died in a single-vehicle rollover accident on Yellow Creek Road. And the University of Alabama is partnering with city schools to offer much lower tuition for teachers looking to earn advanced degrees and move into leadership roles. For the details on these stories and more free coverage of local news, get connected at TuscaloosaThread.com.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of The Game, we're going to talk to Brad Powers. We'll talk a lot of handicapping odds for the upcoming college football season. Rodney Orr will project recruiting. Again, another big weekend on the campus of the University of Alabama. We'll talk to Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Plus your phone calls and a lot more starting at 2 p.m. on The Game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9 and WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from